Is Ches Iyar, Atavshin Ayin. We're having Shikoi with Rabbi Gafni, the Parshas Acharei Mos Kedoshim.
Right, so we're turning to Parsha Kedoshim, the second of this week's Parshas, the chapter 19. Pasuk Yud Zayin. Chapter 19, Pasuk Yud Zayin. Everything all right over there with you? Yeah. Very good. Okay. So now we begin where the pasuk says, "Lo yisisno es achicha bilvavecha." You must not hate your brother in your heart. Lo yisisno es achicha bilvavecha. No, you must correct him. You must bring him to show how he's wrong and correct him. What's the expression to call somebody to call him to
look him for justice.
Right. And you shall not bear because of him or upon him a sin. You shall not literally take revenge. You shouldn't hold a grudge. You shouldn't hold in your heart a feeling that even though you didn't take revenge, but you still hold aggravation and how do you call it? A grievance. Yeah, a grievance. A
grudge.
Yeah, a grudge in your heart. The people of the Yidden, the sons of the Jewish people. Well, that's a very general statement, but that would tend to indicate all people. And you should love your neighbor as yourself. And the Eibishter finishes by saying that he is Hashem, how he's called by the Shem Havaya, Yud Kei Vav Kei. So, loisisno esochicha bilvavecha means that you must not hate somebody, and that's the heifech of what we see at the end of the portion. Ve'ohavta Sinah and ahava are opposites. You're not allowed to hate him, but in your heart. So, that would tend to indicate that if you did anything to indicate your hatred, or even if you spoke to him words of hatred, then you're not over that mitzvah. You're only over this commandment if you hold it in your heart. If you hate him in a spiritual way in your heart. But if you do something to indicate that hatred, then we see from the continuation of the pasuk and the pasuk which comes after it, then you might be, be over, for example, not so much that's another inyan, but lo yisikoim v'lo sitor. Why would you want to take revenge against somebody? Why would you hold a grudge from a inyan which could be called sinner or grudge in your heart? So if you already bring it into some sort of action and you take a step, or you deliberately decide that you're going to always hold this against him, then that's already not the love of loisisno, that's already two other possible negative commandments. which would tend to indicate that not hating your brother is only in the heart. When it comes into any activity, it's another love. And therefore, say is brought down in some of the great poiskim and the great maforshim. Say is mashma in the Rambam and others, that it's only the mitzvah not to hate is only bil vovelcha. It's only in your heart. And if you do actions of hatred to somebody, you fall into other negative commandments. And then it goes on to say, you must correct him and call him to correction. That was the word reprobate him for what he's done. But you must be careful not to carry on him or bear because of him a sin. Says Rashi, lo salbin es ponov l'rabim. You must not put him to shame in front of other people. In other words, that rabim means at least 3 people, as the Gemara tells us, including yourself. You mustn't put it in such a way that in front of other people his face will go white. Right? The Gemara says in Masechta Erechim, Ozal Sumchei, that the red goes away, also Chiveda, and comes to the white. If the redness of his face went away and he turned white, then it's a sign that you've really put him to shame in front of people. So it would appear then that Rashi learns that you're mechuyav to correct another person and to reprobate him, but you've got to be very careful how you do that, because if you do it in an incorrect way, then you yourself can be over allowed. Now, why would you want to correct him? Because you believe that he's done something incorrect, something wrong, al pi Torah. Therefore, you take the step of correcting him, calling and showing him that he's doing wrong according to the Torah. But you must be very careful to do that in a way that you won't cause him shame in front of other people, and then you'll be over Allah. Therefore, but that's how Rashi would explain it. Why would you want to be mochiach him? So some people want to connect it all together in one hemshech, and they want to say, why would you hate another person in your heart? Because you believe that he's done something incorrect and improper, al pi Torah. Therefore, you hate him, or you object to him, or you think he's done something improper al pi Torah to you, and therefore you object to him and you feel hatred towards him. And if the Torah gives you a eitza tova and a way out of the whole union by telling you, correct him. And if you correct him, then what's likely to happen? Either one of two things. If he is a genuine person and he hears your correction and your reprobation to be right, al pi Torah, then he'll say, well, yes, look, I admit what you say is 100%, and he'll apologize and he'll ask you for mechila, and everything will go back to equal. Everything will go back to, and you won't have any reason, and there won't be any sinner anymore because he's asked you for forgiveness. He admitted that he was wrong. If it doesn't go that far that he actually admit that he was wrong, maybe it will become misbarer from what he will say that you were wrong. Maybe there was no reason really to object to him because it was a mistake. It didn't really happen in the way that, or didn't really have the intention that you assume. It would follow that it's all one run. You got a good reason that you think, to hate him, and you're 100% al pi Torah. So the Torah gives you an answer. If that should happen to you, then always correct your neighbor or your friend, because if you do it, then the truth will come out one way or another. L'toivus shnei ha'tzdadim, for the benefit of both parties, and v'lo yisisor of chait, then you won't be over a chait by holding a grudge against him. That they hold that the etzem chait is just holding a grudge and believing that another person is a rosh or not correct al pitora, when that's not the case. And if according to them, it's all one. It's all one hemship, and it's almost like an eitzah teva that the Torah gives us. And the real love, would be not to hate somebody, and then hochiach tochiach is a way and a good eitzah how to avoid and to get out of that sinner. But if you don't do that, then you'll be nice of hate, that you remain in the sinner that you have, and you'll still be misled and misunderstand the whole situation, and that itself is at the beginning of the pasuk reveals it's not a desirable thing. But the fact that Rashi says lo yisal binas panei chavere barabim, that Rashi learns that the whole union of the hate which would come out, well, that appears that Rashi learns not necessarily all one hemshach or just like an eitzah teva. There's an union not to hate another person for whatever reason it be, and if you do come to correct him for that or for whatever reason, you must be careful not to be to put him to shame in front of other people, but you must do it carefully and in private, etc. Etc. is well known, the various sinyonim, but again to that. And then the pasuk goes on and says that you mustn't take revenge or take grudge or hold grudge. It comes along Rashi and says, Lo shikoim, oimaloi, if a person said to the other person, Hashileni magelcha, please, lend me your, your scythe. I need to cut my things and so on. Please lend me your scythe. Omaloi, la. And he said, no, I'm not going to lend you. I don't want to lend you my scythe. Okay. Lamocha, omaloi, lamocha, the guy that wouldn't lend him his scythe, he comes to our person and he says to him, Hashileni kardumcha, maybe you lend me your axe. I want to chop wood, or got other things to do. Or sometimes a kardum can mean a spade. He said, lend me your tool. Omalei eini mashilcha, I'm not going to lend you. Kederach shaloi shaltani, I'm not going to lend you, just like you didn't lend me. Says Rashi, zuhi nakima, that's called taking revenge. In other words, that he uses the same inyan that the first guy didn't lend him. He uses that as a reason to hit back at him and say, just like you didn't do it, I'm not going to do it to you. That's what the Torah means by not taking revenge. Ezu natira, what is the next one? You shouldn't hold a grudge. Omalei hishalani kadumcha. Here it goes the other way around. But some of Mephoshim are medactic in that whole union. It starts off in one place with a magir, and then it goes to a spade, and in another case starts off with a spade and goes to a magir. We can't really go into everything, but there are some people who are medactic in that. Omalei, you should lend me your spade or your axe. Omalei lav. And he said, no, I'm not going to do it. Lamocha omalei ishalani magelcha. The guy comes to him and says, maybe you'll lend me your scythe. Omalei heilach. He said, okay, here's my scythe. I'm lending it to you. Ani eini kemoishcha. I'm not like you. Shaloi hishal tani. In other words, you didn't lend me. I'm going to lend you. See how big I am? I'm not like you, that you didn't lend me. So what is that indicative? It's indicative that he really deep inside he still holds a grudge against him, but Lapoyel he lends him to. So Rashi said that's called guarding in your heart. Zuhina tira. Shenoiter, he guards, or eva biliboi afopi she'enoi noikem, even though he doesn't actually take revenge. So here we see that I would have thought that I'm not allowed to take revenge. They're talking about a guy that did some terrible thing to him, and he's coming after him, with a sword or with a whole group of guys, and he wants to really, tear him to pieces for what he did to him, or who knows. The dramatic matters. So Rashi said, no. The love in the Torah is quite a simple matter. This one said, would you lend me? And he said, no. And so he said, I'm not going to lend you. That's the revenge. So we see it's only in momin, what we call matters of ownership and money. Well, from that it would appear that if it was somebody, mamish, did something against you, harmed you in a general way, mamish in your goof, then maybe you would be able to take revenge. Maybe you'd be able to say, listen, this is not just a spade, this is mamish, that the guy really does. So I'm going to get back at him. So, we do find such a concept in the Torah, Lamashal. Later on in Sefer Bamidbar, we're going to have the whole dinim, all the dinim of somebody who's a rotzeah, somebody who murders, God forbid, whether b'mezid or b'sheigeg. And then we see over there that there's a family member of the killed person. He's called Goyel HaDam. He's redeeming the dam, and he's coming to take the blood of the rotzeah in place of the blood of the killed man. And the Torah even says that if he did it mamish b'mezid, and we can establish that he given to me, then the Goyel Adam, he's got the first right to kill this guy mamish b'poil, even before the Bezdin. And therefore your Moshe say biyad Goyel Adam. This they taught in the Torah. So from that it would be apparent that where it's mamish talking about life, a human life, or inyone hanefesh mamish, the Rulai Ken yesh inyan for Nakima al pi Torah, and it's even called Giulas Hadam. It's even called redeeming the dam back into its right place. V'chule. So the far Rashi is careful to say that the whole inyan of Nakima is davki in inyone moment. Only in inyone moment. There the Torah said to you that you shouldn't be noikim. In other places, in other very serious matters which touch the goof, and the same with the Indian of Natira. It would appear that where somebody did you really a terrible thing in life, then you can't be expected of Peter not to hold a grudge against him. Maybe if you want to be lifnim, Mishuras Adin, what we mentioned that a bit later, then maybe of Al Pi Din Torah, you can't expect a person not to hold a grudge if something really terrible has been done against him by that person. But some people want to make a difference, and they want to say that when it comes to loisikoim, which is mamish an action in Maisa, there the Torah limited it to inyonim of that not being able to do that is only in inyonim of the of the money, but not in the good. Mashenkin, when it comes to holding a grudge, then there's no limitation. The only being over a love is when it gets to moment, or when it comes to inyonim of guf, you can't really expect a person. It's not human to expect a person not to feel some adequate grudge for the rest of his life against that person. Shoy, that's it. Ad kan vi ohavta l'reacha and you shall love your neighbor like yourself. Omer Rabbi Akiva zeh klau godel ba Torah. So Rabbi Akiva says this is a great cloud in the Torah. So I asked the Shiloh, what's that got to do with it? And what does Rabbi Akiva want to tell me with that this is a cloud godel Torah, in the Torah, it's a big cloud. If he meant to say that this was a thing which affects many things, which are al pi Torah, then he could have said Zeh Klau Godel b'mitzvahs, or he could have just said, Zeh Klau Godel. Or what if he says Zeh Klau Godel b'Torah? That's the Indian what refers to Derosh Piyah. Now the truth is that that's in the Chumash they bring down that the reference to that is in Teres Kohanim that occurred in a medrash of our sages on the whole Sefer Vayikra, which is called the Teres Kohanim. It's miyuchas, I think, to Rabbi Yishmael. However, there's a Yerushalmi, and in Yerushalmi in Masechta Nedarim, Perek Tes, Mishnah Daled, over there the Yerushalmi brings the Sinyan of Rabbi Akiva, so does the Sifra or the Teres Kohanim, and over there's a difference of opinion between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shimon ben Azai. You've heard of Ben Azai. Ben Azai, he was a contemporary of Rabbi Akiva, and he was a great Tana, and Kishmoy Kain, who is a very, very stark, very tkifas person, and so on. So he says that it's written at the end of Sefer Bereshit, first Seder Bereshit, after it's told all the different people and what happened with Adam and Chava and all the Inyonim, then the Torah comes up and says, Zeh Sefer Teolus Adam, Biyom Shebora Oisei Avai Elokim. This is the Sefer of the Teolus Adam. And then he says, Zochor Nekeva Bora Oisei Vayivorech Oisam Elokim, the whole thing. But anyway, he begins with the first quote, Zeh Sefer Teolus Adam, Zeh Klal Yesha Gote. And Ben Azai disagrees with Rabbi Akiva, and he said that's an even bigger cloud. So everybody doesn't quite know, what does he mean with that? Zeh Sefer Teolus Adam beyond Broy, say Elokim, Zochor Nekeva Bora, with the whole Rorichas. What does he mean by that? That that's an even bigger cloud than Rabbi Akiva's cloud. And I mean, Rashi doesn't even hint at there's anybody who differs. He doesn't hint to us Ben Azai, and he just says Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says, that's the cloud Godel Ba'Torah. And it would appear that Ben Azai holds that the other pasuk is a greater cloud in the same Indian that Rabbi Akiva is talking about. Dahainu bein Adam lecha v'lechaver. It's hard to say that they're talking on two completely different levels, because if they were, then it's not really a machlokes. There's not really any point bringing them one together. Kilo that they're differing in a lashon of machlokes, one with the other. And therefore, it would appear that Rabbi Shimon ben Azai also means that in human relations, Zeh Sefer Teolus Adam, telling right from the very beginning at a creation that Teolus and how Adam gave forth Teolus for himself, and that set the whole world moving, and that originally created Zoch and Nekeva with the whole thing. That's an even bigger cloud in human relations and in what you might call Tikkun Ha'olam Ukayitzav. So I thought the Shaila, why did Rashi bring Dr. Rabbi Akiva on our pasuk, which he brings, not so much that. Why did Rashi say that that's the cloud Godel B'Torah, and he doesn't reckon with the cloud of Rabbi Shimon ben Azai? And also, why is it add immediately after that? Ani Havaya, the Shem Havaya, and on that Rashi doesn't comment. He doesn't comment about why did the Torah say here, Dafke Ani Hashem. So, the thing that immediately appears to the attentive reader is that we start off with a whole series, and even before that, there's psukim that they say don't be a gossiper, and don't talk lashon hara, and don't stand on dam reach. If you can save a person's life, you mustn't just say, I don't know anything about it, and keep out, but you must do everything you can to save his life. We see a whole series of negative commandments in the field, all sorts of negative commandments which have got to do with human relations and the good Seder in human relations. All of a sudden, with a Vav HaMosif right at the end, Yeah, come on. And if, like we said, certain people make this all one, long hemshech, and they connect all these inyanim together, and they say that we're after l'racha kamoich. It's also like a hemshech of what was said here, when I get to all these warnings that we're given, don't do this and don't do that, and it starts off with not hating your chava, bilvavcha, and then it goes on to correct him, and the Indian of don't bear upon him a hate, and then loy sikim v'loy siter. So if you will do all these things according to them, then you'll be able to come to you'll be able to come to love him. But if you're nikshal in any of these loisas, these negative inyanim, then you won't be able to be makayim, or it won't follow because you'll be, as it were, you'll be soisa, the etaminian of after on the day that you do negative things, which are hyper understanding and living properly with other people. So according to those great Meforshim and Poiskim, that they hold us all like one hemshech, as we pointed out before, comes along the Chizkuni, but it's also the Chizkuni was a Rishon, but there are other great Rishonim who also go in a very similar way, and there's a Baal HaToisa, Zalatera, what he also says the same basic principle. And all of them talk V'signayin Echad. And they say, why does this in from Loi Sikoim, why does it, or why does the love go when something's already been done to you, and then there's a possibility that you would do back? So we say, don't do that. He said, why doesn't the Torah get angry with the first guy right from the very beginning, that he wouldn't lend his side? The guy went to him quite innocently. He said, listen, I need a mojo, lend me a side. And he said, no. Nobody talks about him. When he comes back to the guy tomorrow and he says, well, would you lend me your kadum? And he said, I'm not going to do like, that's not good. Those are allowed. So Frek the Chizkuni and the other great Rishonim, why didn't the first guy, why isn't he under allowed? Why don't you say, don't deny your property to somebody else? In other words, when somebody came, he seems to be perfectly innocent, and yet he's the one who started off the answer thing by him saying, look, I'm not going to give you my. So this guy gets praise, and then when he comes to him tomorrow, he says, no, I'm not going to give you mine because you didn't give me yours. So why don't we have a love of him, and then we'd stop the whole thing? And the Balatez, the Rabbeinu Becher Shoyer, they all talking the same basic thing. And basically it boils down also to the simple question, why is it in simple matters like this that the Torah put these, loving what we said, that it's all like in moment now, but not deeper than that. So the Chizkuni says a very fascinating cloud. He says that the Torah is not brigid with that first guy, that he didn't give. He said because he didn't necessarily give because of hatred. He didn't necessarily give because of hatred. He said some people are just very, very careful about their tools. You ever seen these guys? Some guys that they're always into work, and they're always very handy men around the house, and their tools are tremendously precious to them, and they're always buying a new tool, and they're always polishing them up and keeping them and making sure they got them, and they're very good gardeners, and their tools are very. So he said, look, this is just a new thing. He thinks in his mind, I just bought this tool, I give him, who knows what he's like to do with it, So it's not out of sinner or objection to the other person. He's just very, he's very, very touchy about his own inyonim. He doesn't want that another person should vercheppen mit seine inyonim. He hates him. He wouldn't give it to anybody. And there was a famous chassid who lived in the Korea. He was a very chassidish yid, and he had a lot of pairs of tefillin. He used to put on a lot of pairs. He made a lot of pairs. So people would go and they'd ask him, would lend them a pair of tefillin and say, no, he just can't lend his tefillin. He can't do it. He's just so worried about his tefillin. They're so precious to him. He's not prepared to lend them. It just doesn't go. So people knew that even though he had several presents, but he couldn't go and ask him. It just benafsha, he couldn't do it. He was worried about his tefillin a lot of times. That itself is a shaila whether he was right or not, but that's the way it says that Chizkuni. He said that guy's okay. You can't really have the Torah is not machayev you to do something that you really don't feel that you should do. The Torah is machayev you. However, he said in a case once, this guy he got disappointed. So what's he got now? He's got an objection to this guy. He's got a sinner. So when the guy now comes to him and says, lend me your tool, so he's not doing it as an act of hatred. He's doing it as an expression of hatred. And therefore, according to those who say that hatred is only in the heart, this is a new love. If you bring it out into an action, there's a new love. It's a new negative commandment altogether. And what the Torah wants is that you should work against your sinner and put Ava bimkom sinner. I said, why should I put Ava in place of sinner? He says, Lahovi Sholem Ba'olam. The way to bring peace into the world is when you mavatal sinner. You put Ava bimkom sinner, but that brings Sholem bein Orma Chavera or Sholem Ba'olam. He throws a very interesting word, the Chizkuni, and so do these other great Rishonim, that all these sinyonim in the Torah are based on the concept of Sholem, of peace, one to the other. They come along and they say, and they bring the Gemara Masechta Shabbos, V'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha is also a little bit like that. And they say, the story over there in the Gemara, you know, that Hillel HaZaken received this, first of all he went to Shammai, and Shammai drove him away with a measuring stick, you know the man, I'm saying? And he came to Hillel HaZaken, and he said, please make me into a ger while I can stand on one foot. Till I'm Danish, call it Terah Kulish, ani yoim ad al rago achat. So you know what Hillel said to him? Hillel said to him, my desoni loch, L'chavrach al tavid. What is hateful to you, don't do to your fellow Yid. And he said, Zeh kol ha-Torah kula, this is the whole Torah, v'idok pirusha, and all the rest of it is only a pirush on that. That's well known, the famous story. You guys know about the story. Mm-hmm. Sure. They bring and they say, you see, that itself is also like a sort of how do you call it, a negative. It's also like it's not mamish a positive, it's like a negative. You shouldn't do to him what's hateful to you. So, Ein Lachanami, the Rebbe, the Tzemel Tzedek, in Derech Mitzvah Selcha, has got a huge view about that. And he says, the Ruach, that's a very ruchnistic in it, because what is the thing that you hate the most is if anybody finds a fault in you. If anybody shows you that you're at fault about something, well then you get really angry and you get really upset. That's when you get really offended. And really you take it out and you deny it hotly and you say, no, you don't understand me and you don't understand the whole situation. If you would only know the truth, you would know it's not a fault at all. It's really a mile. You don't go through what I have to go through in life and the whole business. Says the Tzemel Tzedek, that's the most hated thing that somebody can do to you, is he can point out a fault in you. That's the most hated thing. So he said, therefore, my sonny loch, what's hateful to you, don't do to your just like you don't like finding any faults in you because you love yourself so much. That's the way you have to look at your friend. Don't see any faults in him at all. Because you're prepared to love him that much, you just don't see any fault. So the Tzemel Tzedek turns it into a positive a little bit. He turns it a bit into a positive. Also, of course, there's a trace of a negative there. Loi tavid, don't do to him what you don't like being done to yourself. Don't find any faults in him. to see the good.
How can you reprimand someone as it's
Oh, yeah. So that's another in it. But therefore, we see that the Torah says, "V'lo yisisarov chait." You shouldn't do anything which would be bad for him. You have to do it only in a way that will be good for him. Only in a way that it will be done by v'lofi pirush. That's it. Aber al kopanim, kommt euch that there's also a certain negative trait. At a fire, the Chizkuni and his other, they say, why is it not written in the Torah, v'yahavto eish re'echa kamoicha? Why is it not written, v'yahavto et? Yeah? You should love your friend like yourself. It's written, v'yahavto li re'echa, to your friend. That's an unusual expression. So therefore they say, because v'yahavto eish Hashem, es re'echa kamoicha, that's an impossibility. They say, this kind of design. You can never reach a madrega where you love the other person, mamish, b'puyo, and positively the way you love yourself. It's kind of design. Even the Ramban says it. The Ramban here in his Pirush HaTorah, he also says, it's not really shayek, as Aminzah. Therefore it's written about to lirecha. In other words, you have to love him in such a way that things for him, you will do it the way you would like things for yourself. Dahainu, don't do things that you don't like being done to you, or, you should want his teva. The Ramban says you should want his teva like you want your own teva. Li re'echa. But mamish to love him the same way you love yourself. Torah wouldn't tell an impossibility. The Torah wouldn't demand of us a thing that we can't come up with. I say, that's what they say. Here we see a very fast, if we learn in that oifen, and the posik does run on with a volve after these negative things, which put a tikkun into human behavior, that everything should be right. From that it follows that we are after re'ahu kamoicha is also kiloi inyan built on understanding and on seichel, not beyond reason altogether. Therefore they learn that if the guy really did something really terrible to your personage, to expect you not to hold a grudge for the rest of your life, it's almost an inhuman thing. We don't demand that. And the same with Nekoma. We only stop you Nekoma when I get to money and things of that thing. Or when it comes to Ainian, maybe there's even place in the Torah. Edifier, it follows that the ganze union of these human relations is all what's based to a certain extent on, and therefore the Chizkuni said that you can't really demand of a guy that he doesn't want to give his keli, he really looks after his keli, and he doesn't want to give it. That's not sinner, and that's not an improper human conduct. He's just a human, he's just a normal human. He likes to keep his keli. Doesn't want people borrowing him and sprechen him and chipping with him. I know what he's going to do with it, I lend him my sword, the next thing he'll try to cut stones or something. He'll do it. That it would appear, if we look at it, that human relations, al pi Torah, are based ultimately on what we can expect, not what we can over-expect, not what we can go beyond altogether. Except if we go into a level which you might call Fnim Mishuras Hadin, from Chassidus, in which are in a higher even of a Mamish al pi Torah. And maybe we could suggest that that's an akuda it's put down in many places in Chassidus, that the Torah is from Sfiras HaChochma. It's put down in the Tikkun Isaiah, and we say Araisa Michochma Nafkes in the Zohar Kodesh. The Torah comes out from Sfiras HaChochma. Araisa Michochma Nafkes. So the diuk is that it goes out from Chochma. Its shuras is maybe a lot higher. But the way it comes out and the way it's yored lamata to human being, it's from Chochma. So it's divine Chochma. It's not always completely clear, and that's why we have to have all the biurim of Torah Shabbat to make it clear to us. Although all those biurim don't go beyond the basic, that there's an expected limit as to how far you can go, particularly when it comes to human relations. And therefore we say even by not mocking, the Eibishter doesn't demand the choice words, we don't find in the Torah demands that are mentioned do impossible things. We are not al-pi a-Torah. And the famous cloud, a-Torah al-pi a-reiv tadaber. The Torah talks under the majority, what the majority of people are able to. Ve'ein goizrin ala tzibur dover sha'tzibur ena yochel lamid boy. You can't be goizer on the public, something that they can't take. That's even in Gezeres Rabbanan. But Lefizeh, it would be very understandable, the cloud of Reisa Michok Menashkis, the way the Torah comes to us, Begolo Lamata, Afilu B'Tershe Bi'alpeh, yes, Yesh Inyan Kazeh. Therefore, maybe that's why Rashi saw fit to quote Rabbi Akiva's cloud. And why Rabbi Akiva? Because Rabbi Akiva says, Zeh cloud Godel B'Torah. This is a big cloud, according to the Torah. Dahainu. What does the Torah do? The Torah demands of us reasonable in Yonim. The Torah is never unreasonable to its human being, to Yidden. Because to go beyond human capacity is not the way of the Torah. Therefore, this is a cloud Godel but Torah, the way the Torah has come to us, how do you call it? It's a hemshech to a series of inyanim which are negative, basic in their tikkun and balancing of human relations on an understandable level. That's a way you're expected to relate to another person. You can't be demanded gedel zvenir. I wasn't written Ani Hashem. The Eibishter, like Rashi's already brought, Ne'eman L'Shalim, Schar, and so on. The Eibishter knows if you did a certain Indian and you try to make a trick that you really meant it in a good way and you didn't, okay, it's over there. In other words, the Eibishter will know what your real attitude was and what you were based on, whether you were being noikim or you weren't, okay, it's over there. I'm going to ask yourself the Shaila Lefizeh, what to these things that we find, when it comes particularly to Chassidus and to the Divrei Hayomim of Chassidim and to the way of life, our Pnimus HaTorah, we find that the mitzvah of Avos Yisrael and the mitzvah of Ve'avta L'Recha Kamoicha, according to the Baal Shem Tov, Kol Animshochim Acharo, B'li Kol Yetum in a Klal, Chassidus Poilin V'chulu, Aika Godel She'ein Kamoicha is the infant of Avos Yisrael, and on the contrary, Avos Yisrael has to be Mamish in Azar, even when Ad mitzvah nevish, ad mesirus nevish, with all the wondrous things that we find even in our Yom Yom. You got them every few days. The greatness of mitzvahs avos Yisrael. So l'chayra, there's another inyan here. Yesh po ezeshu inyan noisa. Yesh lema that that's nirmaz in this machlokes between Rabbi Akiva mit Ben Hazai. And Ben Hazai says, what is a mensch? And particularly, what is a yid? A yid is a mensch mit a neshama. And what sort of neshama has he got? A chelak elakame. He's mamish zeh teul on him. B'yayim broya yisay elakim. He's a teulder, as it were. He's a teulder from the Eibishter. He's kaviyachol boni matem. L'Hashem Elokechem. Even afilu, Odom Stam, afilu the Goyim, al Penitevo, they've also got in themselves the mile of Odom. Emisnit Stam Odom, the whole Odom, they're the human race. They're not Odom Amiti, Odom Atem. Although they also have that mile B'miktas. To a certain extent they have that mile. Ve'ilu, the Inyan, hidden. They have a mile what mamish b'demus Elokim, Bora Isom, and that demus Eloki is there in a yid, and it's meir in him, and it's apparent, and all you have to do is look at it carefully, and you'll see how a yid is a living dogma of Elokut. He's like he's a Eloki, demus Elokim, demus Yitzrei. And if Ben Azai wants to say, listen, if you if you interfere with a Yid, you're interfering mamish with the Eibishter. It's not just a negative thing, not just a series of well-based plans. And it's a Klau Godel in the Torah, the way we understand and look and see the Torah, begiluye, what you might call in Nigla the Torah. But a Yid is a hidden, unbelievable entity with his eloquent. A Yid is a tremendously amazing entity that he has in himself, mamish demus dioichnoi, the shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's mamish got the image, of Hashem. In all sorts of Ifanim and bees are nitzot eloki. I looked it up in the Medrash Rabbah. There's a Medrash Rabbah which also brings a machlekes between Rabbi Akiva and Reish Lachish. It's right near the end of the Seder Bereshis, how do you call it, Sedra Bereshis, in the Bereshis Rabbah. That brings that Derech Agav mentions Zeh tells Sefer tells Adam v'Yom Berei Say Elokim, and brings that Reish Lachish. I'm sorry, Ben Azai Makacha, Rabbi Akiva Makacha, and then it says a mitzvah like this. It says that Lefyomim. If you ever notice when a kid, a small boy, is late for school, it probably happened to you when you were kids, or you're late for cheder or whatever it was, you just pray to Hashem there should be somebody else late. You say, oh, I just can't be on my own, but if somebody else will be late, then what am I? There's two of us. At least somebody else is going to cope it just like me, and we'll sort it out too. We'll sort it out together, and you can't be sort of. So it says the Medrash over there, if a mensch went through some terrible suffering, then he naturally wants that there should be other people in the world who are suffering like him, and then he'll say to them, oh, listen, we're shutafim in this tzar, let's get to work. In other words, the Medrash says that it's an almost expectable thing in human terms. If something really unpleasant happened to you, min hashamayim, whatever the reason may be, whatever it may have been the sibah, lakach, whatever that, what do you say? Oh, halavai that somebody else would be like me, we'll be able to get we'll work on this together. So he says, Mitzad Rabbi Akiva implies the Medrash, Rabbi Akiva didn't go out to say that you're allowed to think that way. Ulai, it's at least understandable. But Ben Azai would say that every Yid is a demus of the Eibishter, a cholila v'chas. You would say, I got this because I'm a bad demus. I've done something wrong with my demus. I've like the Alter Rebbe said in Perek Dalet, that you take away the Tzelem Elokim, then the animals think they can get at you. But if your Tzelem Elokim is Begoloi, then the animals don't show you. The famous Meiser, apart from Daniel, he brings over the Daniel, because like Daniel in the lion's pit. The famous Meiser with the Erechaim HaKodesh, very famous two Meisers that happened with lions, maybe three that happened with wild animals, lions, with the Erechaim HaKodesh. And when they met up with him, they quietened down. And one of them even took him on his back and took him where he needed to go. The whole Richasar, because the Tzelem Elokim was by him, and if you hold on to Ben Azai Chas v'Sholem, that another Yid should even come to any sort of, in other words, that Ben Azai, that's an even greater cloud. If you look at another Yid, not just as a Reyacho, and not just a Kamoicho, now you look at him as a divine thing. You don't treat your divine thing the way you're supposed to. Oh, that's not, you have no Havana to get to the other person. As far as you're concerned, he's a divine entity. Well, if he's a divine entity, under no circumstances could you possibly do anything. But Shumaven, there would be Pogea, Be'ezu, in him, in any way, cloud, whatever it be. Even in the case of Loy Sitter, certain people want to say that, where he did you really a schmiss in life, and that's very hard not to remember it later. Even there, it would come and it would be Pogeya, Venogeya, Bekol Oina. We see that in the Sinyan. And therefore the Mephoshah Yerushalmi, they bring a view that if you look at every year as a Demus Elokim Mamish, then you're like Ben Azai, then you're going his way. And we could say that why does Ben Azai? Because Ben Azai was a person, Ben Azai was a mentioned, he lived completely out of the world. He was completely moved on me, with the whole Riches, without going into it. If I remember, his Indian was, completely, utterly moved over, mufresh. He saw only Elikud. As he demanded that of people, that they should see. They might say, well, Rashi brings Rabbi Akiva, and everywhere we've seen him bring Rabbi Akiva. And the 12 psukim that quotes Rabbi Akiva is, that would seem to be ein chanami. But it would seem to be a deeper level here. What Reish Lakish is hinting, that even Al Pi Torah, even in the psukim of the Torah, there's a remez upon him, even though he's not mentioned as much as Rabbi Akiva, that tends to indicate a much higher realm in this whole Eden. And that's what we could suggest is what was brought into the world, Al Yidei, the Baal Shem Tov and his followers, and that's what began with the whole Indian of Torah Chassidus. But even Nifla, well, up till then, no doubt, by Yechidei Zgula and by great people, they also were masik that Indian and they knew, but it hadn't become the nachla of the whole Klal Yisrael. Until the point of when the Baal Shem Tov came into the world, it's well known that there was this whole difference with Talmud Chacham and simple people. The learned people tend to make nothing of the simple people, and there was a whole split in the whole society of Yidden in Europe, and particularly in some of the centers of the great learning centers. And the Baal Shem Tov went the other way. He wanted to bring the value of the simple Yidden into everybody's heart, and he was Mala al Nes, this whole concept of the so-called Poshet Yid. The famous thing that Rabbi Parich said, that Hawaii he would be able to be like a Poshet Yid. The famous story of Rabbi They once asked him what's his whole aim, what's he working at with all his Aveda, with all his Inyanim. But he's working all these Inyanim with tremendous effort and tremendous learning and davening just to be like a Poshet Yid. He would like to find out what it's like to be a Poshet Yid. Says the Baal Shem Tov, a new Indian. The Baal Shem Tov brought in a new Indian. Just to understand that, we see that there's this Indian which is called Mesiras Nefesh. And Mesiras Nefesh means to give away your soul. I say the Torah gave you your soul. There's an Indian to give away your soul. So it comes on the Alter Rebbe and the Torah and in Torah and then all the Rebbeim sort of mention this as they go along, but then all of a sudden it changes slightly and it becomes even more far-reaching. And then there's a famous statement from the Frierdiker Rebbe in Amaima in Toshin Test, and the Rebbe's got a footnote as long as all this, a huge, great footnote from the Rebbe about it with a discussion and a pilpul from it, and that is that they say that there's no time in the Torah for Mesiras Nefesh. The Torah doesn't mention any reason, give any hint why you should be Mesiras Nefesh. Any time the Torah will Mesiras Nefesh. However, it goes a bit further down in history, and the Rebbe Marash and the Rebbe Rashab, they use an expression here and there where they say, "Ain't tzivui b'Torah al Mesiras Nefesh." There's no tzivui in the Torah to give yourself away. No. And it comes along the Frierdiker Rebbe in this mimer that the Rebbe is aiming at. The Rebbe gets to work on with this whole thing, and the Rebbe Rayat, he writes, "V'ein Mesiras Nefesh mefurish b'Torah shebik." So he said Mesiras Nefesh is not mentioned openly in the written Torah. So it comes along the Rebbe, and the Rebbe asks the kasha to everybody. That's written on Mefurish din that for the three famous Avedas, how do you call them? Aveda Zara and Gilui Arayos and Shvichas Domim, that you're mechuyev to give us all your mechuyev to be moiser satzme lamisa. V'loi lava hadikot yehorival. Yeah, the lesson in the Gemara has it. There is such a thing as Mesiras. There is such a thing as Mesiras Nefesh. So the Rebbe asks, how can the Friedrich ever say that it's not Mafurish in the Torah Sheh Biksav? How can the Rebbe Rashav say that there's no Tzivui in the Torah of Mesiras Nefesh? Harei there is. I think there's a Mafurish Tzivui that you have to. So the Rebbe said, that's what the Alter Rebbe said. And that's put down in a famous Maimah, in a Purim Maimah, where he talks about Mesiras Nefesh. The Alter Rebbe said there's no time for Mesiras. So the Rebbe writes, that's fine. To say there's no time for Mesiras Nefesh, that's fine. But to say there's no mention in the Torah, or no commandment in the Torah for Mesiras Nefesh, that's a problem. And the Rebbe is mafalko. But in the end, he remains a little bit with a kasha. He says, even it still remains a little bit of a kasha what we asked at the beginning. And the Rebbe gets up the whole with the Bnei Noach. How are they going to fit into it? They have mechuyev in Kiddush Hashem. They know how to, whole big, Anyway, we see that there's a inyan in the Torah from what's called Mesiras Nefesh. And so the inyan is, whether that's a tzivui or not, that would appear to Yeshua by our Rabbeim. Yeah? Or, if it is a tzivui, nonetheless, there's no time in the Torah. Mashiach in other places, it's written to love Hashem and to fear in the written time. He's your whole life and he's the whole highest of all them. Therefore you should love him. Most inyonim in the Torah, one way or another, have got some basis why you should do that. Or it's moving me'atzmai. What's it the time? Lo yisignai. Yeah, it's understood why you shouldn't steal. If for the feast is a very mystifying thing, I'll picture us, that there is some meaning in the Torah of Mesiras Nefesh, but it's mystifying. It's not with a time, and maybe it's not even there b'klal. Even though it is b'klal. And that's the whole point of the Rebbe's book. Well, we won't go into the inyonim of the Rebbe's famous discussion in the matter, but suffice it to say that we see this inyan of a new level called Mesiras Nefesh. Now, those three things, the Alter Rebbe said also don't make sense if you learn the 24th chapter in Tanya. The Alter Rebbe said those three things are a gezeres hakosov. Why should he davki? Because they're so terrible in the Torah, that's why you have to be moiser nefesh. It doesn't make sense. But he compares them with Shabbos, and we find that Shabbos is in some ways worse than one of them, yet nonetheless, you're not mechuyev on Shabbos to be Yehori Val Yahweh, but the whole thing. So the Alter Rebbe says those three things themselves are a gezeres because they're also not al pi seichel. Why dafke those three? But what about all the other mitzvahs in the Torah, all the other inyonim, and all the other mitzvahs, and all the other things in the Torah? What's the inyan of having Mesiras Nefesh and being moiser nefesh for all those inyanim? Mesiras Nefesh, moiser nefesh for all those inyanim. Abba comes along, and Siddur says that the inyan for Mesiras Nefesh to go beyond limitation altogether, well, that's between you and Atzma Saint. And if we look carefully at it, we find that the gilui of all these inyanim would come through Mesiras Nefesh are basically, in a certain way, they're higher than the Torah. They're higher than what the Torah really does. Yeah, they're higher than what the Torah really is written all about. And therefore, if you take even, for example, you take, it's brought down in the Gemara, Masechta Shabbos, that there's a form of yira which is only a gateway the Torah mitzvahs are only a gateway to yira, the fear of Hashem. So the Alter Rebbe in the Chutz Torah was a Torah mitzvah only a gateway to yiras Hashem. And there's a inyan of yiras Hashem. There's a inyan of bittul to the Eibush, which Torah mitzvahs are only like a gateway to that. There's certain inyanim which are Torah mitzvahs only show us the way to those inyanim, or they're really higher. And therefore we have to say that there's a level which is hidden in the Torah, and how the Torah exactly demands it over this is only sort of pops out here and there, and it's not 1,000% clear how and why, under what circumstances, but there is such a inyan beyond time, vadas, and the inyan for Mesilas Nefesh, even for every prat in the Torah, for every little detail. And that was the whole inyan for New Base Tammuz. They were trying to get over that he went on such Mesilas Nefesh, even for things, just ordinary inyan, which are not mentioned with clothes you have to be Mos Nefesh for. And yet nonetheless he was Mos Nefesh. On everything, all the pratim. And so that's a form of Mesilas Nefesh, but just because it went out of Hashem's mouth, then you got to be Mos Nefesh. Doesn't matter, add us all. Even to put people's lives in danger, and to put his own life in danger. To do the most terrible thing, for any prat in Yiddishkeit, that there should be a kosher mikveh and all those inyanim. Adasol. And with that he broke the whole Soviet Russia. That's how he eventually broke Soviet Russia. What's it does? A mensch. We just saw that everything's got a place in Seichel, Elamai, that they're like two different inyanim. What Torah mitzvahs, zeh klal God, but Torah leads you up into a higher level. But there's a higher level, and that can't always be demanded of you, but ultimately, it is demanded of you. And what I mean by ultimately, after the Baal Shem Tov appeared in the world, then it's demanded of everybody. It's become, as it were, public property ever since the Gila of Silas in the world. That's the whole inyan of what happened with the Ahavas Yisrael after the Baal Shem Tov and the great ones that were with him at the beginning, and maybe also the Arizal and the other great Megalim, Pnimis HaTorah. They were Megala, a whole new, a whole new inyan, what Mesilas Nefesh, Ahavas Yisrael. And therefore if you look in the Hayom Yom and all those places, you find these most amazing statements that Ahavas Yisrael have Mesilas Nefesh, Medav Kein Bizin Self, you have to be Mos Nefesh. I feel for a Yid that you don't know him, and I feel he's on the other side of the world and you never seen him, and the Baal Shem Tov this and the Baal Shem Tov that and the Baal Shem Tov something else, and all the Baal Shem Tov with the Magid and with the Alter Rebbe, and they're all the stupidness in Ahavas Yisrael. Admit you now. It's put down over there somewhere in Hayom Yom or Ocean. You have to love another Yid. Admit to you never. But the word mitzvah never means the last little trace of your soul in your body. It's all going out. You can't live in your mind. Your nefesh is leaving your body. You've got to go that far just for the sake of another Yid. Who's he doing? Elamai, we have to say the whole other inyan in the Torah, Mesilas Nefesh, which mitala is a term that we don't quite know why it's not reported, in what way it's here reported, in what way it's not reported. Over there's a whole new inyan, and that centers around the inyan of Ahavas Yisrael, because the Alter Rebbe revealed that if you want to love Hashem, you have to love a Yid, and that's Ben Azai. The Ben Azai said, a Yid is a little piece of Hashem. Another Yid is a little piece of Hashem. And afar, that's Ben Azai is hidden, and therefore nobody mentions Ben Azai very much. He's another dimension. You know what I mean? Another level of being hinted to you that a Yid is a piece of Hashem. Be careful. Don't say that you would like another Yid to suffer. Don't say a thing like that. Because you want to suffer, somebody else has to help you out to suffer with you. No, we should move in it. From who is? You're playing with the Eivester. I hear a Balabasa to Eivester, vice versa. Therefore, kommt euch that the Baal Shem Tov was Megala, a whole new the whole new level of the Torah, and that's why Lubavitch, people couldn't understand what's with this whole business in Russia. And there were even letters that were written to Friedrich Rebbe. Listen, just get out of there. What do you need it all for? You don't mechuyav. You don't mechuyav. You can hide or go somewhere else. Get out. Or just go down and leave the whole thing alone. Take a few sitting with you and open up a little stibble somewhere and be according to the laws, Chepanish with kind of words, darfst du gehen, schlafen sie mit. And the Friedrich never answered them. He never had anything to say to anybody. He just went on and on and on. And the Rebbe Shabori began it, with the whole Indian of the Bolshevik Revolution, with the whole thing. But if it's a Naya Cook, a whole new attitude. Where did it all come from? So it's hidden in the Torah, but it's hidden in a way that is a little bit not clear exactly, but it's there. And that's what the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya on certain very amazing things. He says the Torah mitzvahs is just like a way to that Indian. The Torah mitzvahs, but then there's a thing higher than that order. Together with Torah mitzvahs is like a gateway to that. Yeah. And that's what's hidden here with this whole Indian, with Rabbi Akiva. Yeah, he says that cloud got about Torah. Or there's another cloud which is L'mayla Mizeh. That's got nothing to do with negatives and positives. It's got only to do, not even to do with the Indian of Yishuv Olam and what's good, and to bring peace into the world. But the Rambam says the whole Torah was given to bring Shalom into the world. Yeah. So in Rambam it's all fine. There's another Indian altogether. Yeah. Mesiras Nefesh, and the first Mesiras Nefesh is of Ahavas Yisrael. Mamish, Piliploid. And that's the Ikar Chiddush. If you look into it, that's the Ikar Chiddush that the Baal Shem Tov brought into the world, and that's what he fought for. And that's what we can say that all the Rebbeim, Be'ikar, and that's come out with the Rebbe, with the Mitzvahim and everything. People can understand the Chabad. When the Rebbe came out with the Mitzvah Tefillin, people think that's a Meshuggah. They live in a room in gas, put Tefillin on people who knows what they are, what they're thinking, what they're who knows what the Vedas they do, and they have to it is lost the room, not mention here, put Tefillin on them and everything. So it was completely beyond human understanding. That's the whole thing. There's a level which is beyond human understanding, and yet that's part of the Torah, but it's not quite sure exactly how it is or where it is. And from the Baal Shem Tov even on, that started becoming the property of Ali in the whole world, but that became their property. Up to the Baal Shem Tov it wasn't. The right people knew about it. The man, the Mesiras Nefesh of ordinary people come out. You can't do that, like they say. Tell a person you shouldn't feel a grudge to another person. You can't do that. But if you go up into a higher level, there's no such thing. It doesn't exist anymore. But all we know is the Eibishter, like the Zohar Kodesh says, Kutshu Bricha V'Yiraisa V'Yisrael Kula. That's all one thing. The Eibishter. Yeah, and the Torah and Yidden, they're all one thing. What's the Zohar Kodesh? So everybody says, who learns the Zohar Kodesh? Anybody learns the Zohar Kodesh? A few crazy Mishugoyim like the Chassidim and these sort of people, they learn the Zohar Kodesh. That's what we can say. It occurred to me, that's what we can say at the end of Shemoneh Esrei. We say, Aseh Leman Yimanecha, Aseh Leman Shmecha. In the little piece we say after Shemoneh Esrei. Then we say, Aseh Leman Terosecha, and then we say, Aseh Leman Kedushosecha. Aseh Leman Terosecha, nicht geht. So must speak. Aseh Leman Terosecha, Aseh Leman Kedushosecha. There's a Kiddush Hashem, and everything is Kiddush Hashem. The Friedrich Rebbe shows that everything is Kiddush Hashem. Just to do any mitzvah nowadays, that's an inu for Kiddush Hashem, because it brings down the emes of Kedusha of Mesiras Nefesh into the world. And therefore, that's the extra inu, and that's the inu. The Rabbi Akiva says, a cloud gadol b'Torah. It's got a certain shaykhus mitzeichel. Over l'mayla mi'atorah, the inu from Kedusha Sercho, which is kilo, a whole big courtyard you go into through the Torah. So that could be and is another story altogether. And we understand why the Rebbe is so fit to demand of people. You take a guy and I said, no, he's gone off to the Himalayas or something. Yeah, you take a mensch and you stuff him out there, and he said, live, find your way there. So this mensch, I said, nah. And he's becoming on himself here, Barot says, you're I'm in Tzotach, yeah, I'm a divide. Yeah, the Bible, you know, she says, oh, we're going, and we are doing, and we are doing. Ja, the Selaman Torah Selcha, Selaman Kedusha, Selcha Dezayin. And therefore the Rambam Paskins, if somebody gives himself away of Kiddush Hashem, even if he's not Chodila Mechuyev B'Dover, he's called a Kodesh, Ikrei Kodesh. So the same thing, a lot of the things we do today as Chabadniks, we're not really Mechuyev. You can't really say that you're mechuyev b'Torah. In other words, you drag him out of bed tomorrow morning, you drag him down to Modi'in or someplace, and you stand him out on the street, putting tool on people, and talking with people, so that he's mechuyev b'Torah. He has to sleep himself off. You know, let him sleep. Let him have a quiet Friday, and then he'll be a man Shabbos. You know, geh hin, geh stay in gas and do this, do that. But that's it. Where did it all begin? It all began with Mesiras Nefesh for Avos Yisrael. And therefore, after the Re'ach HaKamoicha becomes a positive, not just a hemshot from a series of negative. It becomes a huge positive, and in them, the whole neshama of a Yid finds another neshama, and the two etzims join up, and they join up together with the Eibishter's etzem, and that has become public property. That's the inyan which is going to be, how do they say, V'avos Yisrael Yovi Yasah Hagoyo, how do they say, V'yikarav Yovi Yasah Avos Yisrael Yovi Yasah Hagoyo, bring the Gula Shema, and that's what they've been saying. And try to get through to people. Have a bit of Mesiras Nefesh, have a little bit of Mailam Mitam V'das, Mailam Yaseiko in Avos Yisrael, and then you'll be cool all these inyonim, and you lift them up into a new level with that. Moshe will have no brayer. You'll say, Zoe, that's what these guys are doing. Here we come, and here we go. Yeah, with all the limitations we saw in the Gemara, that he might have a tzorah, but the other Sachen of a Mashiach will just throw it all aside, and he'll be here, take him miyad now. Thank you, my gentlemen.